Good morning, everybody. Good morning. How are you? All right. All right. So I want to thank you guys very much for coming out and joining us. All right. This is just the start of the evening, the start of the morning. I do want to let you know that we are about at 11:28, and our workshop in Gallery 4 will be opening in about 2 minutes. So if you want to go upstairs and kind of engage with those materials, please feel free to do so. We have several tables up there. We can fit about 40 folks in the gallery. We are also will be streaming the conversation in galleries 2 and 4. Okay, so if you happen to go to the workshop and you still want to make sure that you have a chance to hear the conversation between NAACP President Catherine Hicks and Dr. Xavier Bucks, you will be able to do so. Okay, so please note that. If you've already had a chance to write your letters to Huey P. Newton, we would love to collect them. We want to make sure that we can get them over to the Huey P. Newton Foundation so they can know here from Philadelphia, the things that we would like to ask and just say to him if he were alive today, all right? And then to give you an idea of the workshops that will be taking place upstairs, we have our Black Panther Party 10-point program reflection. And then we also have Colors of Activism. These are coloring worksheets inspired by Emory Douglas, okay? So this is something that'll be really great for the kids, for family members as well. And likewise, if you're able to let us either take some pictures or kind of hold on to them, we want to make sure that we can kind of archive that and just show, the support that Philadelphia has, all right? All right, and as a reminder, we're going to start opening remarks for the panel discussion at about 12:25, so we have about a little less than an hour before we really get into the conversation. If you have not had a chance to just say hi and engage with President Catherine Hicks, she's right up there on the stage. President Hicks, if you can wave your hand. And I believe I saw Dr. Xavier Buck in the building as well. Yes. Yes, welcome. So we already have our guest speakers here in-house. And again, we can't thank you enough for joining us, for coming out despite the weather. And please enjoy yourself. If you'd like to get seconds, please feel free to do so. We'll have some more menus come downstairs. We have more than enough food, all right? All right, so enjoy the rest. And again, if you're ready to start those workshops in Gallery 4, you can start to make your way up there, okay? Thank you, Angela. Thank you. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. All right. So we are going to kick off our panel discussion. All right. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Amber Mays. I am the manager of events here at the African American Museum of Philadelphia. Thank you, Ms. Fee. And I just want to let you know that we are thrilled that you were able to join us for our Brunch at AMP. This is our second brunch in our Brunch at AMP series. Really hope that you guys have enjoyed the food so far. If you've had a chance to engage with the workshop, that you're feeling inspired, and ready for this panel discussion. Want to first start off by thanking our brunch partners. We have details by Ms. Dawn, who's provided this great food. So shout out to our caterers. We also have Kitty on Top Bartending, who have provided all of the drinks that you've had this evening, the milkshakes, the orange juice, all of that stuff. But then we also want to give a special thank you to Jack and Jill's Rites of Passage group. These were the teenagers who were serving you today, all right? They spent the night with us last night as part of one of their Blanketed in History initiatives, and they were very excited to then jump in and try to embody some of the community engagement that the Black Panthers Party has done over the years, okay? Again, today's brunch is very special as we are paying tribute to the Black Panther Party, this theme being the free breakfast for children, one of their many initiatives and community initiatives that they've hosted throughout their years. Due to the generosity of Citizens Bank, we were able to offer reduced admissions for today. Tomorrow, we're able to offer free admission for our MLK Day celebration. So if you can come back out tomorrow, we would really love to see you. This same room, we're going to be hosting a Secure the Bag workshop for all of our parents that want our kids to know what it feels like to budget. This is the perfect workshop for them, okay? And then we're also going to have the exhibiting artist in this room, Shahid Rucker, is going to be hosting a collage making workshop as well, all right? And so, again, hopefully you've had a chance to engage with our workshops. And the one workshop that we've had down here, if you have not had a chance to, we really would like you to engage with the letter to Huey P. Newton, all right? We want to make sure that we provide some of these copies to the Huey P. Newton Foundation. Again, we have Dr. Xavier Buck here, and we just want to show them what Philadelphia has to offer and how we support our brother and sister organizations, okay? The other workshops that you were engaging with upstairs, we had the Black Panther Party 10-point program reflection. If you've had a chance to do that, again, we'd love to collect those from you. And then the Colors of Activists, which is inspired by coloring sheets created by Emory Douglas, all right? And so, similar to the free breakfast program, these workshops only scratch the surface of what the Black Panther Party contributed to our communities across the nation. All right, so now that we do have these two incredible guests, as I shared earlier today, but before we introduce them, we want you to learn just a little bit more about the Black Panther Party. So we have a very short reel that was produced by the Huey P. Newton Foundation. All right, so if you can just turn your attention to the screen, we're going to get that played right now.
You can read the platform of the program, and it's a basic program, and it simply says exactly what black people have been crying for 400 years.
Huey P. Newton and Bobby Seale started the Black Panther Party in Oakland in October of 1966, creating over 60 survival programs to help the community. Chapters were then created all over the United States and across the globe.
Well, it was many sides.
All right, Tyrone, is the sound cut out here? Can we replay that? All right. Well, while we work that out, let me just, I want to introduce you guys to, not a problem. I want to first introduce you to today's moderator, that is Catherine Hicks, okay? Catherine Hicks is a prominent figure in Philadelphia, known for her work in the communications and civic engagement. She was raised in the Mount Airy, Philadelphia area, educated in the city's public schools, and later attended LaSalle University. Catherine has held key positions including Director of Project Management and Communications at Philadelphia's Sharif's Office, Public Relations Consultant for the Philadelphia Sunday Sun, and publisher and co-owner of the paper since 2015. In 2021, she became the first female president of the Philadelphia branch of the NAACP. And let's just give a round of applause for that, all right? She led initiatives on gun violence, police reform, fair lending, education, and voting rights. Her leadership has also resulted in significant advocacy for Black community economic development and school funding. Catherine has been honored with several awards, including Women of Excellence and recognition as one of the most influential figures in the city. She has also dedicated time to her family and civic organizations, all right? And then we have our guest speaker, Dr. Xavier Buck. Dr. Xavier Buck is the founder of the Black Panther Party Museum in Oakland, California, established through his leadership as the executive director of the Dr. Huey P. Newton Foundation. Dedicated to preserving and promoting the legacy of the Black Panther Party, Dr. Buck oversees fundraising, exhibitions, education initiatives, and public programming that bridge historical insight with contemporary relevance. A graduate of St. John's University and the University of California, Berkeley, he is also the creator of the At History in 3. If you do not follow that, please do so, okay? Please do so. He's always dropping some really great history gems on that page. This is a series on Instagram and TikTok, making Black history accessible in under 3 minutes and reaching over 1 million accounts per month. Through innovative projects and global social justice campaigns, Dr. Buck empowers new generations to learn from the past and shape a just future, right? So please welcome me and give a round of applause for Catherine Hicks and Dr. Xavier Buck.
You can read the platform of the program. It's a basic program. And it simply says exactly what Black people have been crying for 400 years.
Huey P. Newton and Bobby Seale started the Black Panther Party in Oakland in October of 1966, creating over 60 survival programs to help the community. Chapters were then created all over the United States and across the globe.
Well, it was many sides to Tupac. He was raised by the Black Panthers.
From Super Bowl halftime performances to movies, the party has been part of the American consciousness for over 50 years. One of the essential programs was the free breakfast program, which became the blueprint for the free breakfast program that the federal government runs today. Party members also distributed thousands of meals per week and set up food distribution sites to feed those in need. Actually, the party created medical clinics nationwide and provided medical care free of charge to those seeking medical attention. They focused on sickle cell anemia, which disproportionately affected African Americans. They also created the Oakland Community School in East Oakland. The students were taught by party members, and the curriculum focused on culturally relevant education, replacing the public school system's European framework, perceptions, and biased curriculum. The school was created to educate, heal, protect, and liberate young Black students.
And it's the people that will cause the revolution, and it's the people that will cause the change in the country. The Black Panther Party is simply the vanguard of the revolution, and we plan to teach the people the strategy and the necessary tools to liberate themselves.
We're on. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Isn't this a wonderful afternoon? And on a day, again, when we honor one of the most pivotal icons of our generation, of the century, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. Thank you. Thank you. So I'm Catherine Hicks, president of the Philadelphia Branch NAACP, and I'm honored to be here to again
partner with the African American Museum. We have done a number of partnerships, and this is one that, again, I am very proud of. I want to thank again Amber, of course, Dr. Jordan, and the whole African American Museum staff for this, and all of what they put together. But Amber is phenomenal, and I just want to again thank her for giving us this opportunity, and all of you for coming and not letting the weather stop you, because this is important. I mean, again, when we talk about our history, when we talk about things that we need to be able to do together, the NAACP is the oldest civil rights organization, founded in 1909, and again, has always been a part with the Black Panthers. We have been organizations that not only work together, but have a lot of the same ideas on what we need to do for our communities. So I'm honored to sit here with Dr., should I call you Dr. Buck? Yes, and be able to just have a conversation as to the importance, again, of the Black Panther Party, but how it resonated in the time of, when we needed a group to stand up. We have the breakfast program for our students. Why? Again, because the Black Panthers saw the need. They put this together, and to this day, our children are still able to get free breakfast in school because of that. So again, thank you. And let's give a round of applause again with all the Jack and Jill, the students. They were phenomenal. Just we have so much to be proud of when it comes to our youth. So, sometimes, we get a bad rap for our youth, but we have some really good youth doing some great things. And, those who help them, those who are part of them, the teachers, the counselors, those who are heads of these organizations. I have a lot of our NAACP staff and members and our chairs here as well. And I want to thank them for coming. If they want to raise their hand, and we got Angela Davis here from the NAACP. She's normally Miss V. She's the secretary, but also she handles our AXO program. So without further ado, let us get on with the program. And we're going to go with the first question, Dr. Buck. So thank you again for being here. So today is Inauguration Day on MLK Day. The symbolism of this day and some of the rhetoric of this new administration does not align with Dr. King's dream. One of the principles of the Black Panthers was that you cannot fight racism with racism. You must fight it with solidarity. Amid all we see on the news today with this current administration, how profound these words are. Can you please share with us your thoughts about how we can use this quote to prepare ourselves within this new administration?
Thank you for the question. Yes. And thank you for inviting me here. I'm happy to be here at the African American Museum in Philadelphia. Thank you in particular to Amber. I don't know where you are in the room, but Amber is the one that reached out to me directly and invited me here, so I just appreciate that. And before I answer your question, I would love, there are some Black Panther Party members and Panther Cubs in the room. If you guys would just stand and be recognized. These are some local Panthers and Cubs here in Philadelphia. And I start with that always, one, because they deserve to be recognized, but also because I'm simply a vessel, right, telling stories about the Black Panther Party. I wasn't there at that time, but I'm a historian. I'm somebody who sits at the feet of the Panthers. I'm somebody who learns and figures out a way to tell that message to the masses. And so I'm honored to do this work and to tell the legacy of the Black Panther Party. Now, you asked a question about solidarity. Yes. And I think that that's something that was unique about the Panthers. And I don't think people always understand how that happened. The Black Panther Party was the vanguard, meaning they set their 10-point program. They showed people how to do survival programs. They created a newspaper that completely contrasted what the mainstream media was doing. And as they did that work, there were other ethnicities and other revolutionary groups that saw what they did and picked up the mantle and copied them, right, or replicated it. And so, for example, I was talking to a Panther named Billy X, And he told me when the free breakfast program was made in Oakland, which is where it started, there was a site over in an area called Jingletown, which was mostly Latino, and the Panthers still served there. And then before you know, you had some brown berets who started picking up the same thing and then ran the free breakfast program that the Panthers started. So when we talk about solidarity, it was very organic, right? It was all about, hey, we are revolutionaries. This is what we believe. This is how we think we move forward. If you guys are down with this revolution, you're down with what we're talking about, then we can work together. So the Panthers worked with Latinos. They worked with the American Indian movement. They worked with white progressives. A lot of funding came out of LA from the Hollywood left, right? There was a lot of solidarity. And so when we think about how we move forward as a people, keep in mind I'm saying black folks were in leadership, black folks were running it, but it wasn't about race, it was about class warfare. So we have Donald Trump getting into office. Yes, he says a lot of racist rhetoric, but before anything, he cares about money. He cares about keeping this power structure in place that keeps us poor and keeps him and his friends with money, with wealth, with power. So that's what we're fighting, right? So when we're talking about solidarity, yes, we take care of ourselves as a black race, but we're really talking about how do we get out of poverty? How do we completely flip the script on its head so that we're not worried about food insecurity or health care or why we're all locked up in these prisons that are far away from the cities, right? All the things that keep us oppressed. When we talk about revolution, we're talking about flipping the script so the economic system we live under no longer produces these things. So solidarity, when we're talking to our comrades across different lines, that's what we're saying. We're saying get with the mission. We're trying to take down capitalism.
Wonderful, wonderful. Absolutely. So, again, we're here today, of course, to celebrate the legacy of one of the Black Panthers' most successful programs. Can you explain for our audience what made the free breakfast program so successful?
The free breakfast program, one reason it's successful is because the media and the FBI tried to paint the Panthers as these angry black men with guns. That's what they kept printing in the newspapers, showing on the television screens. And they didn't show all the men and women serving the people, right? Bobby Seale estimated by 1970 that the Panthers were 2/3 women. So first of all, just talking about gender and that kind of portrayal, that wasn't correct. The guns were something that were used by the Panthers, but they were also political tools, not the end-all be-all. It was one thing to use. It shocked the people, showed black people they had constitutional rights, that they had a right to defend themselves. It also shocked police, right? They say, oh, black folk ain't playing around anymore, right? It's a political tool. But when you serve the kids, how can anybody be mad at that? How can anybody be mad at you're feeding the babies? And so it does two things. One, it's a contrast to the media portrayal, but also it really embeds you into the community. Now, why it started is that you had all these kids going to school hungry every day. It's hard to learn when you're hungry. That's why we ate first before we got down to this conversation.
Right.
Right? And so when you eat, when you're full, all of a sudden you can start thinking. But think about this. The average age of a Panther was 19 years old. So think about a scrappy group of teenagers waking up at the crack of dawn to feed these kids eggs, grits, sausage, whatever they can get their hands on to feed these kids. For the first time, these kids been going to school hungry every single day. What kind of questions are these kids going to start asking? What kind of questions are their parents going to start asking? Think about that. All of a sudden it becomes this point of inquiry. How can we live in the wealthiest nation in the world and they can do so little? And this scrappy group of teenagers, these Panthers that have all of a sudden gotten well organized and found food, how can they do so much with so little? And that contrast, that contradiction, plants a seed of inquiry to say, maybe this is not the economic system we should live under. Maybe something needs to change, right? And so the free breakfast program was not charity, it was an organizing tool. If you're feeding the babies, all of a sudden when you're running political campaigns like Bobby Seale ran for mayor and Elaine Brown ran for councilwoman, Ron Dellums, who wasn't a Panther, but he ran for Congress and he was working with them, right? All of a sudden, everybody you were feeding now can be a political base. And a lot of those people had just came up from the Jim Crow South and never voted in their lives. So the free breakfast program was once again an organizing tool, right? And so that's why it was powerful. And the FBI had to admit, J. Edgar Hoover himself, the leader of the FBI, had said, he said, the Panthers are feeding more people than the U.S. government.
Absolutely.
That's embarrassing.
Yes, it was, but and it was so needed. It was something, you know, that changed the perception of the Black Panthers as well. You know, the negative actually became a positive for a while. So that was important. What are some of the biggest misconceptions? Because you brought up a few biggest misconceptions that you would like to correct about the Black Panther Party.
Well, some of them I brought up, right, about how the media painted him. There's a historian named Curtis Austin, and he estimated that 70% of the newspapers that were the media, that was the stories that were written about the party while they were in existence, so we're talking about from 1966 to 1982, that 70% of the articles penned about the Panthers were either written by or influenced by the FBI. So we still deal with that in the Panthers' afterlife when we tell the story. You have to really know what archives to look at, how to work with them, making sure you're working directly with Panthers and with the newspapers that they put out to tell their story. Because I think we get a lot of misconceptions, and sometimes we tell a lot of history wrong, just because we have bad sources. They've been painted in a way where there was disinformation while they existed, and there's still disinformation now. I think another misconception is that the Panthers were just the same all across the country, but there are a lot of chapters.
Right.
They had a presence in 45 different states, and every chapter was very different. All right, Oakland was different than Philadelphia in a lot of ways. And so what Panthers would tell me in the early 70s, when the Panthers had a split, and they were trying to figure out who was an informant and who wasn't, right? That creates a lot of paranoia. And they started to close down chapters across the country and bring Panthers to Oakland and make it a base of operations. That's when they started running those political campaigns. And so Panthers talk about, well, there was folks like Panthers from the East Coast would have braids in their hair, and the West Coast Panthers had afros, and you know, just like cultural differences, right? And so that was like a lighthearted way of talking about it. But there were differences because every community is different. So I think there's a lot to explore about the Philadelphia chapter here in particular, and highlighting that very local story. The message about the women, that there were women not only in the rank and file but in leadership. At times out of necessity because there were so many black men incarcerated and killed, but also just because these women were very talented and were ripe for leadership, and they fought for their place in the Black Panther Party. And so I think that's different than a lot of organizations in the 1960s and 70s who had issues with women being in leadership. And so, you know, that's another misconception that a lot of people, they still think these black men, but it was really comrades working side by side. And I'd like to emphasize that too. I think when people talk about gender, they try to separate men and women. But comrades is a gender non-conforming term, right? It's a term that says we are soldiers in this. And so to just say these are men and women working hand in hand, it's something I think that is really important to emphasize as well.
Yes, thank you for that. And you know, another question that still kind of relates to that is that a lot of people may not know is, why was the Black Panther chosen as the sort of mascot or the name, and also what they ended up using as their, you know, their mascot or whatever?
I'm gonna tell you the story I heard. So this is it, and I've been trying to do the genealogy of it, right? So this is what I've heard. I heard, first of all, before the Black Panther Party existed, that was founded in Oakland, there was the Lowndes County Freedom Organization in Alabama. In Lowndes County, it was my understanding that it was about 98% black, and there was only one black person on the voter rolls. This is in the early 1960s. And these were people who were sharecroppers. So when you're fighting for your voting rights, and the power structure, the white folks wanted to push against that, they evicted them off the land that they worked on. So they lost their jobs and their housing. So these people in Lowndes County, Alabama, they lived in tents for 2 years, protecting themselves with rifles from all kind of Ku Klux Klan folks and white supremacists that were terrorizing them. And they did this just for their right to vote. And that was a very inspiring story, but they used the panther. They called themselves Black Panther Party. And I was told that it was SNCC that helped design this panther, but it was adopted from Clark Atlanta University, from their mascot. Now, the Black Panther Party founded in Oakland wasn't necessarily not different, but ideologically the same as the Lowndes County Freedom Organization. Not entirely different, just not the same. But they were inspired. Huey Newton and Bobby Seale, they were inspired by the Panthers, as well as several organizations around the country at that time. But Huey was also working with Stokely Carmichael, and they asked the folks down in Lowndes County, could they adopt the Panther as their emblem? And that's how it kind of just got adopted. But now Emory Douglas did do another iteration of it, and so it was redrawn for the Black Panther Party. It was founded in Oakland that we're talking about today.
Wonderful, thank you. That's the story I heard as well. So thank you for that.
We can compare notes.
So also, the Black Panthers' visual presence was so important to the landscape of the civil rights movement. What acted as their inspiration behind their choice in wardrobe? So again, that's getting back to when the designing, the Panther, but when you knew when the Black Panthers were around by the hat, the black turtleneck, the leather jackets, what sort of inspired that as well?
So I'll tell you what I heard. Because Panther's always going to be able to tell it better than I can. One, the beret, right? It's a military beret.
Yes.
I was told it was inspired from the French Revolution, but there were a lot of revolutionary groups that used the beret. The leather jackets, I told it was something that everybody had in their closet already, right?
Okay.
You're trying to organize a mass of people who don't necessarily have money. So we need to get a uniform together, but it also has to be something that's accessible. And so leather jackets were accessible. Wearing all black is accessible. But it was important to look uniform. And I think that the Black Panther Party is set apart from a lot of organizations from their look because they're saying, we're military, right? The police come out and terrorize our communities, and they're in uniform. So if we're pushing back against that, if we're defending ourselves, then we need to be uniform as well and have a real response. So that's what I was told.
Yes, heard that as well. So next, I'll ask, so what can protesters and social activists learn today from the Panthers' experience? Are there any points, actions that you can caution them against making?
I think there's a lot of things we can learn from the Panthers as it relates to activism today. One, the Black Panther Party had their 10-point program, right? So they set their political agenda from the jump. I think a lot of times in the movements that we build, sometimes we don't know where we're going or what we're actually demanding, right? So the Black Panther Party, literally above the 10-point program, says what we want, what we believe, right? So that was clear as day. I think a lot of times we're expecting the government to give us what we're asking for. We're demanding government officials for a lot. The Black Panther Party, the 65 survival programs that they created were in the absence of government. This is a time, think about, they spread all across the country very quickly, but in Oakland, it was 50% black, and yet it was a white mayor, a white city council, and all white bureaucrats, and an all white police force, all recruited from the South to control the Negro problem. So, yes, they wanted to shape government. They wanted to have community control over it, but it was, if government never does a thing for us, what do we do for ourselves, right? So we talk about free breakfast program, how do we set that up? Let's use our imagination. We need food, we need some people, we need some cooking materials, right? We need some tables and chairs, we need somebody for sign-in. Okay, where are we gonna get the food? Let's hit up all the grocery stores in the area. Let's hit up every single business in our neighborhoods that don't contribute anything to us. Even the black ones. There was a time when there was a black-owned liquor store owned by this guy named Bill Boyette. He refused to contribute to the Panthers programs on an ongoing basis, right? They weren't asked for one time. They said ongoing. They boycotted a black-owned business. They said, you're putting poison in our neighborhood. How can you not contribute? He came around eventually, right? And so it's thinking about, well, what are we actually asking for? The Panthers were asking for community control over the institutions in their neighborhoods, right? So they're talking about community control over the police because policing is not working how it is. A lot of folks think it should be abolished entirely. At the very minimum, the Panthers said we need control over it. We need to know who's policing us, how they're policing us, and then we need accountability. They wanted community control over the hospitals, right? They set up medical clinics to provide services to people who At the public hospitals, a lot of people were dying in the public hospitals. Folks wouldn't go because more people were dying when they went in, right, than staying out. So they set up free medical clinics. Let's get some, how do you set that up? Let's get some doctors who say they can volunteer 3 days out the week or 2 days out the week. Let's get some nursing students, have them volunteer, do some of the blood work or whatever needs to be done that the doctors don't do. Let's get somebody at the front desk. And I found in our archive, there's a budget for one of the medical clinics that was in Oakland. This is in the early 1970s. It was $10,000 per year was how much they ran it with, right? I think a lot of times we don't think about how we can actually have self-determination. We think it's something complicated. We think about reparations, and we're like, the government needs to give us these funds, and they do, right? That's definitely an end goal, but there's a lot that we can do for ourselves. You know what I mean? And it's not complicated. When you don't have money, you have people. I'm baffled when people talk about homelessness across this country, and they said, you know, like in San Francisco, they said they gave $1 million and all they built was a porta potty, right? That was a big headline in San Francisco Chronicle. I said, well, what you need all this money for to build housing? You need people, you need materials, and you need to fast track some permitting or get some land or something, right? We need to have a place to do it, right? Get some people who could build. Let's build some housing. Let's build some shelters. Just do it. Like there is nothing for us to wait on but ourselves, for real. And so I think for the movement today, I think that's one of the biggest lessons I've learned from the Black Panther Party, and especially doing my work as founding a museum. I didn't come from the museum field. I heard from the community that they wanted a place where they can come learn about the Black Panther Party, and I heard from the Panthers that they said they wanted to tell their story. I said, okay, let's figure out how to get a building. Let's figure out if we can get any kind of funding source. We have an archive that we preserved already. And I put together a whole lot of people, a lot of volunteers, people who want to see this happen, a lot of goodwill. And I take all those talents and we pull this together. It's really, everything has to be a collective effort. And so to me, that's the biggest lesson that I personally get from the Black Panther Party. And I think is relevant for movement building today.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yes. Love that. So within the famous mantra, power to the people, which was one of the key principles as well, tell us today about the Black Panther Party. Are they still in existence? Where if people wanted to, know exactly what they're doing now or get in touch in any type of way, how would we do that?
Well, if you want to talk to Panthers, you go to that table right back there. But the Black Panther Party dissolved in 1982. Mm-hmm. Their last program was the Oakland Community School, and when the doors of that closed, the Panthers closed. So anybody who's saying there's a new Black Panther Party, that's not the Black Panther Party. That's a separate organization.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know.
I think more than anything, people need to pick up these autobiographies and memoirs that Panthers have written themselves. Those are where the gems are.
Yes.
There's a lot of historians that have written about the party, but it's never the same like somebody who says it in their own words. And to me, it's almost an impossible task to do a definitive history of the Black Panther Party because there's so many chapters and so many people, and it means so many perspectives and so many experiences. So for me, like by reading those autobiographies and memoirs, that's where the picture gets a little bit clearer, right? Because it's just no way to really just tell you this is the only thing that happened. It did in so many other ways.
So many different stories. And what I'll say as well, again, with the African American Museum here, and this was, I believe, almost 2 years ago now, but I had the honor to interview Bobby Seals as well. He came here, with his book, and I will say, I mean, it had so much information in it. And the Black Panthers, they have a history. Your museum, again, we're so glad that you have that. Where else can we get information? We can look up, I know it was something on a screen about where you're putting in information on Black history. What is that? And can you tell us a little bit more about that and how it actually, I guess, has Black Panther information as well?
So you're asking where we can get information about our organization?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I'm the executive director of the Dr. Huey P. Newton Foundation. This organization has been around since 1995 and was founded 6 years after Huey was killed, and he left his entire archive to his widow, Frederica Newton. So Frederica Newton and David Hilliard, who used to be the chief of staff of the party and was one of Huey's best friends, they took that archive, preserved it at Stanford, but continued to hold the intellectual property rights, meaning that we can do whatever we want with it. We have the permissions over it. We have control over it, but it's housed at Stanford because we needed a professional team to preserve it, right? And that was the catalyst for starting this foundation, was preserving that collection. And so they were the ones doing this work, like the legacy bus tours all around Oakland. They were consulting on films, publishing books, taking exhibitions all around the world. They were doing a lot of this work in the 90s, back when it wasn't necessarily as popular to be saying, I'm a Black Panther. It was still a time when a lot of people couldn't get jobs if they said they were Panthers. A lot of trauma from going through the kind of state repression and the FBI targeting that happened. Because you guys know, COINTELPRO was created to discredit, disrupt, and destroy Black leaders. Did not just include the Black Panther Party, included Dr. King as well, included Rosa Parks as well, but included every single Panther. Also a lot of Black businessmen and businesswomen that were in there. A lot of Black people were in there, and progressive whites. And I think that I'm thankful that they did that work in the 90s, because now I sit on their shoulders. And David Hilliard's taken a step back, but Frederica Newton is still the president of the Huey Newton Foundation. And so I work directly with her. And prior to 2021, there was nothing in Oakland that said the Black Panther Party existed there aside from murals. And for me, I went to school at St. John's University in Queens. And when I was living in New York, I saw a lot of murals get covered up or torn down from gentrification. And so I knew, I was like, that's temporary. So for me, as somebody who is much younger than most of the people I work with, than all the people I work with, I was like, well, how do we preserve this permanently, like in perpetuity? If folks are not here forever, how do we make sure 3 generations down knows about the Black Panther Party? Not just the history, but like can take their organizing tools and move them forward. And so that's why we did small things at first. We installed Dr. Huey P. Newton Way on the street where he took his last breath. We did that because that started forcing the city to come out and acknowledge this history was important here. Then we installed a bronze bust of Huey Newton on that same street, and it intersected with Nelson Mandela Parkway. So we started getting kind of international attention, had the Associated Press out there, San Francisco Chronicle, also had some of Mandela's grandkids write letters of support for us. And then we used our relationship with the city to then occupy this building that at this moment, no, we don't own. We lease it from the city, but it's basically free to us. And we built this museum out. And for me, that's the prototype to think about, okay, down the line, we need to have our own building. We're gonna scale up. But right now, this is where we are. And so we've done things in steps. And so I'm just telling that story because you don't necessarily get that just from walking in the museum, but this is the Dr. Huey P. Newton Foundation's 30th anniversary. And so it's a big year for us. And then next year is the Black Panther Party's 60th anniversary. So when we talk about how this work has happened, right? It's from all the Panthers who have did the work and then preserved their own legacies. It's from all the community members who were served by the Panthers and preserved this legacy as well. It's from the Huey Newton Foundation and other Panther preservation organizations that have been doing this work. And now we're in this moment leading up to the 60th anniversary where we're proud to have a Black Panther Party Museum. We're proud to have events celebrating the Panthers and the free breakfast program. We're proud to have movies like Judas and the Black Messiah on the big screen, because it wasn't always like this. These folks were terrorized. They were called terrorists themselves. Imagine the people feeding your babies were called terrorists. The people giving you sickle cell testing and giving you medical treatment, terrorists. The ones that are busing you to the prison so that families don't get broken up, called terrorists. The ones that offer free plumbing service and pest control, because why are we living with roaches and rats just because we're poor? Those people are called terrorists, right? Because they want to flip the script on its head. And so this is a big moment for us personally. And so to learn about us, we're the Huey P. Newton Foundation, hueypnewtonfoundation.org, blackpantherpartymuseum.org. And so you can learn more about us, but more than anything, y'all got to come to Oakland.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Absolutely.
Because that's where the birth of the Black Panther Party is, and that's where we're at. And it's important to see the landscape of what happened in our city. It's a particular story, and it relates so much to what's happening in Philadelphia. We got to keep talking back and forth.
Yes.
And so I already forgot the question. I think I went off
No,
the rails a little
you
bit.
actually no, you answered.
I got excited.
Yes, but you answered and you gave us even more information on it, and that's important because another key point of what you said earlier is again the narrative and how stories about us were told and it wasn't true, and that's why it's so important that we tell our own stories and that we have these museums and we have places that we can go that has the correct information. And with the other hat that I wear as a publisher, and I published the Philadelphia Sunday Sun, these are the type of stories that are important to our community and our neighborhoods. We have to read what we write because we're telling the story about us. So it's that tell your story, get the information from your source, and because the mainstream media doesn't always do that. They plant seeds so that a particular narrative is given out, and sometimes it's believed because a lot of people, perception is reality. When you read something or see something, then it looks like that's what it is. But just to go back to all of the good that the Black Panthers did, again, they were called terrorists. So, what my final question to you, and then will we have time to do some questions, Amber? Okay. My final question to you is, how would you like the Black Panthers Party to be remembered in history?
I like them to be remembered as people who had the boldest imagination. And this kind of goes back to a previous question where you were asking about like lessons for the movement. And it's not enough when I say community control over institutions, it's not enough for just black people to be over it and us do the exact same colonial stuff that we go through every single day. I'm gonna give you an example. The Oakland Community School. This is Panthers and community members. They put this together, and every single day they reflected on maybe the public school systems that they grew up in and what they would have rather had when they were kids, right? Real simple. What would we want as kids? Like, what would we do different? So at the Oakland Community School, kids got there every single day, and they started out with meditation every single day, right? They were fed 3 meals a day. They did not have grades. They had groups. So say you were stellar in language arts and you were with everybody else with math. You could move up in groups on language arts with kids older than you, and you could stay with your age group in math, right? So just thinking about, okay, why do we even have grades? The parents were really involved in the school. So when the teachers are about to give out grades, they'd go to the parents and say, hey, do you have any input on their grades? Like, what's going on in the home? And they could do that because they had a relationship with them. They'd go to their houses. They would sit with them, have dinner with them, right? Actual relationship. Same thing with community members. And one of the best things I heard or I read about, Panthers told me, is that when there were discipline issues, you actually went in front of a jury of your peers. Because that's what they were calling for in real society, right? So if there's a disciplinary issue, you went in front of other kids would decide what's going to happen with you. You don't get sent to the principal's office and then to the school to prison pipeline, right? It's a jury of your peers. They were literally creating the society that they wanted to see. And it was not indoctrination. They were teaching these kids how to think, not what to think. We weren't talking about standardized tests. It was about preparing us for this big old world that we live in and how do we operate in it, just as a people. And so I think that's what I'm saying when you say what should they be, what I think they should be remembered as. It's their imagination, right? To have community control of our institutions and then completely reimagine them. Let's do it completely different. Why does anything that exists right now, why does it exist, and what actually works for us, right? And I think a lot of times we have a lack of imagination because every single day we live in this world, and that's our reality. So it's hard to imagine ourselves outside of it. But that's the work we have to do if we actually want to see something different.
Thank you. I tell you, I am very impressed, and I plan to come to Oakland to see this museum. We're going to make an effort to get our students out. The NAACP, this is going to be one of our initiatives to make sure that we come. These are why organizations like the NAACP is so important, because we have to keep this movement going. We have to continue to fight for our rights, to fight for our children's rights, to make sure that we have opportunities that we're supposed to have. that are our rights as well. So, thank you so much for this. I really appreciate it. Amber, are we going to have a few minutes for questions? All right.
So if anybody has any questions, all right, we have right back there.
Okay.
First, before the question, I want to thank those members of the Panther Party. I think that all of us should acknowledge them. When you talk about revolution, you talk about the COINTEL program, we're not talking about no joke, and I wish all of us understand that. We're not talking about a joke. That's serious. And when we're talking about, since we're in the African American Museum, and we talk about self-determination and that whole thing of foundation, I hope everyone goes look at the core exhibit, because the model, especially for Black Philadelphia, of what the Panthers did, we're talking about in the 18th century. All of those things, not government involvement, being able to feed, being able to deal with discipline, all of those things, we have a history that's over 200 years old. And I think that we should acknowledge that and not play with it. And I hear my passion about that. My question is, in relationship to the food program, to you, Doctor, is because the core issue is whether, do we believe that we're a colonized people, which is what the Panthers here are sleeping? Some young people don't understand what you're saying. Can you break down what does it mean to be a colonized?
That's quite a question. We didn't choose to come to this country. We could start there. We were brought here to be enslaved. To build this country, we did, all right, but not by choice. So when we talk about being colonized, trying to figure out how much to break down and not break down. I'm going to put it like this. American capitalism in particular was built by the transatlantic slave trade. That's where we get modern ideas of insurance and speculation, right? All the things that we talk about with our economics, with capitalism right now, came out of the transatlantic slave trade. Right? These are all places that they colonized folks, meaning they enslaved them on their own land. They might have brought us here to America, but many folks were enslaved on their own land to produce some kind of material, right? Some kind of product, whether it was cotton or it's sugar or it's coffee. They were brought here or colonized on their own land to produce a material. So when you think about this, and you think about our existence in America, and it's like, well, slavery ended in 1865, but our economic system didn't change. So what does freedom mean? All right, so we go from slavery to being sharecroppers. We're still picking cotton. My family personally picked cotton on the same plantation in Louisiana that they were enslaved on, up until about 1950. Right? My grandmother used to keep a cotton plant in her front yard to remind us of what she used to do. And so once again, we're still on the same plantations, but then we're thinking about all the way in Oakland. Huey Newton is in Oakland. He says, the police are an occupying force in our neighborhoods. They're the ones that are the enforcement agency for colonizing us. In the same way that people are being colonized in the Congo or being colonized in Vietnam, right? He was basically drawing these parallels. He's saying we're going through the same struggle, which back to the earlier question is why solidarity was so much easier to think of and to produce. I think that we pretend, getting back to the point, it's because we're under the same economic system. So when we look at if we just look at data and we talk about the racial wealth divide, doesn't look like we're doing all that much better today than we were doing right after slavery, during Reconstruction. We can draw those parallels. We could look at the kind of fields that we work in, our opportunities for our job opportunities. What kind of wages are we making? Dr. King said it's a crime to have starvation wages. That's what we have. Everything's getting more expensive. It's hard to live. It's hard to feed ourselves. I mean, these are just the same systems being reproduced over and over again. So the reason I say constantly, let's get rid of capitalism, and you can do with that what you want as far as what you imagine the new society to look like, right? I'm not telling you what that needs to be. That's up for you to imagine. But what I'm saying, get rid of capitalism because this is the economic system that slavery built. Now, if we're talking about in Africa, colonization there, we just had Burkina Faso. Their leader just kicked out all, they took the French names off the streets and Philly's 50% black?
Yes.
That's what I heard, right? So we wanted to see ourselves. We wanted the vestiges of colonialism to be rid of. But then that's just so we can help imagine what comes next, right? Because the real thing is, how do we flip the economic system on its head? And so when you're asking about what does colonization look like, I mean, we're in it. It's not really post-colonial, right? That's pretend. We need to have ways. And I think that we need, and what that then means is you have to work collectively. It means you have to work with your brother and sister. You have to acknowledge that the FBI and the entire US government did a number on us since slavery and today, COINTELPRO and what's going on today, right? That there's a reason we disagree with each other. There's a reason we have a house versus field, Negro mentality, right? There's a reason that exists, but we have to imagine something different. What do our relationships look like? You can't build a movement without knowing one another and working with one another and dealing through those hard parts. All that hard stuff, colonization. All that, you know what I mean? All that, just that difficult stuff. When you say you don't want to work with black people anymore, you get tired of each other. Colonization, all right? A lot of people ain't difficult, they colonized. For real, for real. And so it's just about like rethinking that. We live in it every single day. And another way I think about it, man, like these freeways that rip and run through our country, we breathe this reality every single day as if they didn't use eminent domain to tear through our neighborhoods, right? And we just drive from, you know, they speak us from white terrorists. Then you build, and when the Compton PD would come in, they would try to get rid of them, but the FBI would step in and stop them from doing so, right? They said, this isn't your terrain, you need to leave the guns there. That's the same time that Compton Panthers, a guy named Robert Johnson, he said he used to, on Sunday mornings, he used to wake up and try to sweep up the small crack bags before the kids would get to it, because it was so cheap that junkies were walking out and they were just falling out in the streets, and he would sweep them up. So you have all these drugs sweeping through the city. You got all these guns being dropped off in the city. You got freeways being built through us. At the same time that now you got gang proliferation because the party's been dismantled and people are disagreeable, right? Colonization is dangerous. It's painful. It hurts. It makes us think that when our family member was a crackhead, that it was their fault. We are under siege to tear us apart. So when we talk about, now you're getting me going. What's it called? We talk about colonization. There's so many ways to identify it.
Yes.
So many ways. Sometimes it's as simple as saying, just we want to see ourselves in a monument. But that's just for the imagination, because we know we need to flip this economic system on its head. We need to go back over these past 200 years, like you talked about, and reclaim all of our organizing strategies. We're not doing anything new for real. But we do live in a society with a lot more technology, and so then now we can reimagine to do things differently. We can learn lessons from the Black Panther Party, what they did well, what they didn't do well, just like we can from any movement. Every movement has had its problems. But once again, if you understand that we're a colonized people, and our struggle is the same here as it is in the Congo, as it is in Palestine, as it is in all of these places where people are being oppressed, being forced to live in poverty, given starvation wages, when you start to see those similarities all across the world, and you realize this is our lives. These are our lives. These are our communities. These are our museums. These are our stories. And we deserve to have domination over our narrative and our existence. We have not perished despite being enslaved and being colonized. And there's strength in that. But it doesn't mean we need to be in this for much longer. Something got to give. And somebody's being inaugurated pretty soon. Okay? So let's figure out what we do next, right? And how we continue our struggle, not start something brand new. We've been here before. We've had Richard Nixon. We've had Ronald Reagan. And quite honestly, a lot of Democrats ain't been great for us neither a lot of times. Bill Clinton passed the crime bill. Right? Biden's been writing checks to Israel to commit genocide in Palestine. There's a lot that's been going on. To me, it's not about red or blue. It's about the haves versus the have-nots.
Yes. Thank you.
And so we have one question over here, and then we have another one right up here after that.
Hi, my name is Sadia, she, her pronouns, here from West Philly. I had to reframe my question a bit because I think you answered a lot of what I was going to ask. My first question is, do you, based on your study, do you see organizations today nationally that are following in the footsteps of the Black Panther Party? And I ask that, obviously seeing a President Trump, seeing genocide happening, seeing Black and brown public schools being closed in our neighborhoods, seeing undocumented folks constantly being under attack for deportation. So I'm curious of if there are particular orgs that you think we as everyday people should be joining or looking to continue the legacy of the Black Panthers. My second question is, what do you think about a lot of the, skin folk ain't always your kinfolk. So we also have political leaders who look like us, who have tried to bring back stop and frisk to the city of Philadelphia, who don't support communities that are Black and poor, but support communities that are Black and rich or Black and middle class. So I'm just curious about what do we do with Black leaders who support capitalism, who know why it's harmful, who benefit from it at the expense of poor and Black folks? How would we continue the legacy of the Black Panthers to challenge that in 2025?
Yeah, thank you for your question. I'm going to focus more on the second one, because the first one is, I don't think there is another Black Panther Party right now. I think there's a lot of people who have taken stuff from the Panthers, have learned from them, and there's stuff there. But we don't have like a Black Panther Party right now. I don't think we do. And part of that can be from, I was telling you, could be from lesson learns about when you have central leadership or figureheads, easy to target, right? Folks were assassinated. We lost Dr. King. We lost Malcolm X. We lost plenty of Panthers. We lost Bunchy Carter and John Huggins, Fred Hampton, right? We lost 32 Panthers while they were in operation. So it's kind of just, I think we need I don't think we need necessarily the Black Panther Party as it was right now, but I think we need versions of it, right? And so there are a lot of grassroots movements that take from it and do stuff with it, but I think we still have room to grow, personally. But I think with your second question, you're talking about all kinfolk, or all skinfolk and kinfolk, it's great to see Black representation, because once again, I told you, Oakland was all white, the mayor, the city council, the bureaucrats, right? And so they wanted to break up the white political machine. And so we say white because racially it was all white, but we were really talking about a power structure, right? It was the white people who had the money and the Black folk didn't. So the Black Panther Party weren't running candidates just because they were Black. They were running them because they wanted community control over government. And that just looks a little bit different. I'll put it like this. This was the actual vision. So all those survival programs that they did in Oakland, they used that to then organize a political base. And when Bobby Seale ran for mayor and Elaine Brown ran for councilwoman, they garnered 30% of the vote. They did not win, but they garnered 30% of the vote, which was huge because it showed all of a sudden maybe the white political machine is breaking up a little bit. And it's because they galvanized a whole new voter base through those survival programs. Now, they knew they felt like they were perceived as too radical to win political office. So they got this guy named Judge Lionel Wilson. Light skin, curly hair, talk nice, right? He was middle class. And they ran his campaign. And they said, okay, we're going to put this man up there, but we're going to do everything behind the scenes because we know what we want, right? We're running on the same platform, but everybody else doesn't know. And so they ran Lionel Wilson in 1977. He becomes the first Black mayor of Oakland. Now, the vision that didn't get realized was that now this would have been a moment where the government would have been representative of those survival programs, right? So free breakfast for school children wouldn't have to exist because then the city of Oakland would provide that, right? The free medical clinics, city of Oakland could provide that. They were basically going to turn it inside out. But what they really wanted to do next is take over the port of Oakland and take all the money that you get from the imports and exports and redistribute that wealth all across the city. That's how they were going to change the economic system, particularly in Oakland. And that's what they mean by Oakland as a base of operations. They were trying to create this model city and reimagine what life could look like. And it wasn't just necessarily just Black people, it was just poor people, really. It was Black, it was brown, it was white sometimes too. I mean, they had white people from Appalachia, the white patriots, who came and worked with Fred Hampton's Rainbow Coalition in Chicago, right? So once again, it's the haves versus the have-not situation. Does that get at your question? I think I had one more thing. And and one thing I just didn't mention, I know I'm being long-winded, because with the free breakfast program, and people celebrate that the government now does it, right? That nationwide we have free breakfast programs. But that's not community control over the government. They took over the free breakfast program to make the party weaker. They co-opted the program to neutralize them. Because J. Edgar Hoover said himself, the FBI director said he wasn't scared of the guns, he was scared of the free breakfast program. Right? And so, once again, right, so on a city side, I think there could have been community control over that local government. But we're talking federally, it's much harder. And so it's just important to draw those parallels.
All right. So we have time for about 2 more questions. I know that we have one back there with Alex, and it looks like we have one more. All right. And then if we could just make sure that we keep the our chatter down a little bit so we can hear the question as well as Dr. Buck's response, okay?
Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Mike Africa Jr. I am a second-generation member of the MOVE organization. I wanted to say, first off, that some of the Panthers are still in prison. They still exist. Right here from Philadelphia, Mumia Abu Jamal is still in prison and has been in prison since 1981. And he's not the only Panther. My question is, so I've been married to my wife for 27 and a half years. A lot of people ask me the question, what's your secret? And they say, other people say, I think the secret is communication, keeping it zesty, festy in the bedroom, all of this kind of stuff. And all of those things are important, but the real thing is alignment. You have to be aligned. You have to understand who you are with. You have to choose who you are with and all these things. And I guess my question is, in these movements, oftentimes it's not the government that is the real enemy. Oftentimes it's the people in the movement because we're not always aligned. The same with the relationship. We in divorce court, we trying to figure out from Judge Judy what we gonna get. We need to be aligned. And I guess what is the takeaway for the infighting within the movement?
Really, Mike?
Because the MOVE organization experienced so much of it to the point where it tore people apart. And now I'm the lone wolf trying to show people that we were good people. That my family wasn't a bunch of crazy murderers, whatever. Because I know who I am and I know who they are. And so I think that with these movements, we have to understand the importance of unity. We have to be aligned with each other so that we can continue to move and not be disbanded and not be disrupted and not be destroyed. So I think people need to understand that more, and I think you have a great answer for it.
Well, Huey Newton said, power is the ability to define phenomena and make it act in a desired manner. And so when you think about what the Panthers were up against, the U.S. government defined them, called them terrorists, said they were angry black men with guns, said they were all these terrible things. And then they planted a bunch of informants, and they started sending letters across chapters and across between Huey Newton and Eldridge Cleaver, which is where the split happens, right? And basically sowing tension, elevating. Everybody has issues, right? We all have to work out stuff in relationships. But when you have somebody that wants power over you, basically playing you like puppets, right? You don't know what's real and what's not. And so for me, the lesson is think about who your enemy is and think about who's in control and think about what power would actually look like for us. When the Panthers put out their newspaper, it was, as it's been described to me, they said that the news back in the 60s and 70s, like everybody was Fox News today, right? And so they wanted something completely opposite of that because there was no other alternative narrative. And so that was a chance to try to control who they are and say, we are this. These are the programs that we do. This is what we believe. This is our political agenda. This is how we organize the people. And so it was about how do we define ourselves and then how do we move people around and organize them so we can actually obtain power. And so for me, it's really just about when funny stuff happens, ask why. I had this group in San Francisco that I've been working with for the past couple years, and they were building an HBCU satellite campus. And we had a black mayor of San Francisco, London Breed, in a city that's only 5% black. And right up, this happened very recently, a few months ago, just leading up to the election, they tried to pin her to the HBCU satellite campus, saying she's favoring the black community over everybody else. Keep in mind, the money for the satellite campus was taken, it was $120 million taken from the police budget. So we're talking about a reparations framework. Man, they pinned them people against each other. You had all these people in the black San Francisco community working against each other, sowing tension, right? And it imploded. Next thing you know, you had an article out from the two articles in San Francisco Chronicle accusing the woman running everything of all kinds of stuff, mismanagement, and they're doing an investigation, can't find anything. But because they put out the news articles right before the election, they got 3 black people in power removed. They forced Mayor London Breed to separate herself from the project because she wanted to get reelected. It happened right before the elections, right? And so when I see stuff like that, it's like, well, who's really in power and what are their aims, right? The Black Panther Party didn't have to split, but it's a reality they did. Mm-hmm. But it had a lot to do with the FBI being all up in their business. And unfortunately, people lost lives. People lost relationships. People found out sometimes they had kids with people who were informants. Didn't find out till years later, right? Imagine what that does to your psyche and to your ability to trust people. So once again, colonization, right? But it's just really like, who's in power and what do they want? And how do we make sure that we understand what's going on? Take a minute and assess your situation and move forward. I think that's what, personally to me, that's what I've learned from it.
Mm-hmm. And I'll say something real quick on that as well. You know, in organizations, you know, each organization when it's put together and, you know, when you join or when you have something, they have a mission and a vision. And those who are involved, you have to make sure that they are on that accord. When you see people who don't have the same mission, value, that's not the organization for them. And you have to look at them then and say, what are they here for and what are they trying to do? Because we have to come together as a people. And when we're together, you know, it's strength in numbers. You're able to do things when you're working together. But when there's dissension and you have people that come in just to disrupt, and we have that. Again, it's like with the plantations, the you know, house and the outside Negroes. You have to make sure that you're working in one accord.
All right, and I believe we have one last question in the back.
First of all, my name is Rosalind Elder. I'm actually from Boston, Massachusetts, and I just happened to come upon this program. I came down here for the Time Is Now exhibit at the Philadelphia Museum of Art, which everyone should visit because it's really incredible. But anyway, and I was looking and seeing, you know, I wanted to visit this museum, and I said, oh, wow, this is happening today, so here I am. And I want to thank you for this presentation, this conversation, because it is really phenomenal. One thing, you know, I grew up in Memphis, Tennessee. I was, you know, it was right. I was maybe 9th grade when Martin Luther King was killed. And I remember my mother would not let me go to Mason Temple. She said, I don't know what's going to happen there. You can't go. And I realized that she did that out of fear. You know, she wanted to protect her child. And you know, that happening at that time, at that sort of point in my life, was really transformative. And so in protest, I cut my hair off and grew an afro, you know, and I think I was inspired by the Panthers. But one thing I want to sort of, I don't know if it's more of a question or a comment, is that for me, the Panthers sort of really, they were about refusing to normalize oppression. You know, and that was the essence, that and the critical thinking that they forced people to do. A lot of people don't want to look in the mirror and say, okay, you know, I am sort of going with this program that maybe is sort of, you know, oppressing my community. People don't want to look, you know, look in the mirror and sort of face that. So for me, you know, I really admire the Panthers. And I just want to say, I know they were inspired by Malcolm X. May 19th, 2025 is the 100th anniversary of Malcolm X. And in Boston, we are putting together a readathon of his autobiography because we think the time is now for people as a community to read his autobiography because he was transformative. He inspired the Panthers, and I think that people, when I share, we have 50 volunteers. We're trying to get 200 volunteers. We have 50 already. We don't even have a venue yet. And I'm thinking, Philadelphia needs to do this because this is a beautiful venue to do that.
Yes.
And, but even today, people don't want to talk about Malcolm X. You know, they want to sort of sanitize him and clean him up and say, okay, let's, not talk about him, but him is who he was. And who he was, I refuse to allow, the system to put its foot on my neck and my community's neck. And whoever is sort of not good with that, that's your problem, not mine. And so I just want to thank everyone in this room. I want to thank Philadelphia. This has been really wonderful.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comment.
Yes. That was.
All right. Well, let's give Catherine Hicks and Dr. Buck another round of applause. All right. All right. And so at this moment, our president and CEO, Dr. Ashley Jordan, is going to make some final remarks. Right?
Good afternoon. I think the mic is still up, right? Okay, good. Good afternoon. Give yourselves a round of applause for being here today. We thank you because like the lady that just spoke with the question about Boston and Malcolm X, let's make sure that we stay connected because I can see this being something that will be a satellite there in Boston. We could do something here in Philadelphia, and we could do something there in Oakland. So I think this work that we're starting today is a continuation of the work that we know we need to do because now more than ever, we know tomorrow is Inauguration Day, but we'll be celebrating the real dream. And the real dream is us in solidarity. And if we take anything from the Black Panthers, one of my favorites is Huey P. Newton. And he said, where there's people, there is power. And as long as we stay together, we can show our power. So I thank you all for being here. Be sure to come back tomorrow. We're going to have our financial literacy game to empower our children to learn more about economic power by saving your money and investing it. So come on back tomorrow. We want to thank citizens for hosting this event. Dr. Buck, President Kathy Hicks of NAACP, thank you. Oh, yes. And, before we leave, we definitely want to get a picture of the panelists. I know folks want to talk to Dr. Buck. We'll make sure to have a receiving line for him as well. Get your pictures. And then also, if any materials for our gift shop, Dr. Buck, next time, let us know. We'll have them so y'all can come back and get them. And then we also have food for you all still. So anyone who wants to take home any more extras, there are to-go containers for you available on the far side. So help yourself to those. And thank you again for being here. As you all know, the Eagles have yet some more work to do tonight. So for our Eagles fans, let's keep going. All right, have a great day and happy MLK weekend.